What is up, everybody? We are back with another episode of Commercial Roofing Radio. We got a great guest in the building today. I'm jacked up. We got a lawyer in the building. So we got a smart man. We got London in the building. London, what's going on?
What's going on, man?
So he is the youngest partner at Daly Black, right? So he's been working there for some time now. He's actually located in Denver, Colorado. One thing that is interesting, he was actually on the other side of things prior to this, working with the insurance companies. He has made the transition and is on our side now. So we are grateful for that. Any resources we can get, right, especially with those claims on the commercial side, which is what we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking about how to really cultivate that commercial claim. He's going to give you all the tips and tricks to make sure that you're successful in getting the money you're deserved and protecting your client's assets. He actually you were in the military as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I went to Virginia Military Institute, and I was commissioned out of there, took an educational delay at the law school, and then they went from taking 82 JAG officers a year in 2012 down to 41.
Wow.
So I was voluntarily let out of my commission, which I didn't really. JAG is not the sexy thing that the TV show makes it seem like.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty boring as it relates to the law. So I was excited to get out of that and be able to go into private practice right away. Ended up working for a firm that, we had 4 clients: State Farm, Liberty Mutual, Nationwide, and Allstate. So I began working on property claims there, worked my way up to commercial claims. I did that for 5 years.
Right on. So why did you go to the military then? Was it the movie or something like that? You got excited, or what was it?
Yeah, my family is background in the military. My dad was a Navy SEAL. His father was in the Army. My uncles are all Army Rangers. So it just seemed a natural progression to do. Also back in 2004, it was a popular thing to do as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there was a lot of movies and TV, and just based off of where I grew up in rural Southern Virginia, that was one of the options of a way to get out, right? What to do. So, but it's not. I ended up going to Virginia Military Institute to become get a college degree. Ended up going on to law school to pursue that, but it wasn't anything I regret, though.
Yeah. So how was growing up in a military family?
It was fun. I mean, there's some benefits to it. Dad's not always around all the time, but when he is, Big Bad Dad came in and brought the pain. His saying growing up was, "The beatings will continue until morale improves," which he was a pretty heavy-handed guy, but I wouldn't take back his upbringing for
sure.
Yeah,
for sure. What did that discipline bring you? I mean, how did that benefit you think?
So I think the discipline he instilled is that there's severe consequences for your actions. I mean, he pulled no punches. He was a very very spirited guy, and punishments were heavy where I grew up. So it taught me that sort of the value of doing right and the consequences of doing wrong. Right. But today, I think a lot of people would call Child Protective Services over some of the things that he was up to. But
100%,
corporal
right?
punishment was in back in the 90s.
We're also a little bit softer, to say the least, if you will, as a society. And I think the biggest thing I got from that was taking responsibility and dealing with the consequences of your actions, right? And you see it too often nowadays where some people aren't doing that. So that's a great life lesson that your dad instilled in you.
Yeah, I mean, ultimate responsibility, taking responsibility is the number one thing. I mean, the first thing anybody can do is figure out what part they had in a problem. But today, as you see with millennials, everybody's shirking their responsibilities left and right, pointing the finger, and it's not beneficial to anybody at the end of the day.
So how was military school? Did you like? So you were at the University of Virginia.
So Virginia Military Institute.
Got it.
Applied to one college and one law school. If I didn't get in, I was going to go back in the Army. But it's one of those. It's a lot like the Naval Academy or West Point. but it caters to all 4 military branches.
Okay.
So our rival school there is the Citadel. I've known some people in the industry that went to the Citadel.
Yeah.
But it's a public military school. It services the Army, the Air Force, the Marine Corps,
Okay.
and the Navy. But out of that, you don't have to commission.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of sayings about VMI. Like it doesn't stand for Virginia Military Institute. It stands for very miserable individual, because that's what everyone is there.
So why are you so miserable? Is it because they're just putting you through pain, or like what's so tough about it? What do you say?
The concept of the military school is, and we read about this in constitutional law when I was in law school, because VMI tried to exclude women from the college.
Oh, wow.
And they said, well, you're a state school, you take state funding, you can't exclude women, you can't discriminate based off of gender. And I was asked about that, and I said, listen, it really wasn't about trying to discriminate against women. It was about trying to continue to discriminate against the men that are there, because they take away all the things that an 18-year-old young man would identify with: their hair, their clothes, their cars. Girlfriends are gone by November, for anybody that matriculates there. Mm-hmm. And so, deprived of those things, everybody is equal. Yeah. And there are no distractions. The number one distractions that would probably deter most 4-year university freshmen from success academically aren't there anymore. Yeah. There's no ability to leave post. You're stuck there. You have no means of entertaining yourself. There's no television. You weren't allowed to have a cell phone.
No TV, eh?
No TV.
No cell phone?
Well, there's TV in the common areas, but not in your room.
Yeah.
And there's no cell phone until you were a senior there.
No cell phone?
No cell phone.
So what were you doing to contact people back, home and stuff like that?
I think it's the longest standing. They still have payphones there. Yeah. Back then, when I matriculated as a freshman back in, was it 2006? Yeah. There was, payphones were still around, but they're still there. Yeah. Even though they've taken them out everywhere else. Yeah. That's the only way to communicate outside.
Is the payphone.
Yep. We use Skype on our computers sometimes, but other than that, there was no text messaging. There was no cell phone.
Yeah. So why is that, you think?
Just to take away any distractions. I mean, these are even today, these are the things that distract us from our work today. And so taking those away and allowing a young man to focus, really, I think that's what it was about.
Another lesson right there, focus, your ability to focus.
And I was there when women were there, and I'll tell you, we've got 20 well-focused men in a room without, these things that would ordinarily interrupt their focus, and then you put a pretty woman in the room. Oh yeah. And they all start acting stupid. They all start doing things.
Your focus, your energy, your actions all change.
It all changes. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So what did you think of that? Did you think that was a good thing to remove those distractions while you were there then?
Absolutely. That's why I applied. Oh yeah. I thought at that time, at that age, that if I had gone to a 4-year university, I surely would have messed it up with the distractions, or not maybe as achieved what I could have achieved without them.
Yeah. How many years is that then?
So it's 4 years.
4 years? 4 years. Yeah. Yeah. And you glad you did it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was free too.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah, it was free too. That's also very nice, right? Yeah, that is definitely nice. Yeah. What would you say there? I mean, let's say we have some roofing contractors out there, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe they have some distractions that are taking away and pulling from where they should be putting energy, right? Whether it's the phone, the television, maybe a shiny object, right, of a different idea they want to chase or whatever it might be. I mean, from your life lessons, from something like that, I mean, what do you have to tell
it's very simple. If you're not 100% focused, you'll never reach 100% of what your potential could be. Your potential is directly correlated to your focus, I think.
I completely agree.
There's so many things even I have to look at my screen time and look at the things that I'm spending my focus on and, reevaluate, despite the fact that we have, I've put these systems in place, years ago to keep myself on a tight schedule. You still have to reconvene and look back over what you're doing with your time, because it's the most valuable thing that we have.
Routine. I bet you that's a big one that you probably got from that. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah. Routine is key. I mean, it's the only thing that it's what puts you in your focus mode, right? If you don't have, if your routine's thrown off, and I travel a lot, so it's something that I have to implement regardless of where I'm at.
So even on the road, you're regimented, you're on the routine.
That's right. To the extent that I can. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always things that interrupt your routine. Always
Yeah.
things that happen. Car accidents happen. But the more focused you are, the less those things interrupt your routine. Right?
Yeah. And I would say, if you're looking at greatness, people who find big success, it's not moments, not big moments, right? It is little moments that compound over time, right? Daily activities, doing the same exact thing for 1, 2, 3, 5 years that achieves that greatness, right?
That's right.
And that's why the routine's so important. You can look at, hey, what do I have to do every single day to get where I want to go, right?
You have
And
to
then
be
follow
obsessed
that.
with that.
You got to
idea.
be obsessed.
You have to be
Yeah.
obsessed with that. The great ones are obsessed, and the difference between being crazy and being a genius is that success.
Right. If you don't hit it, then now you're crazy. Which is pretty wild to think about. And I think that's something you ever struggle with that, but like almost having like too much obsession over certain things. Like for me, I will just completely get fascinated about something and I will not let it go until I get it. Do you kind of have a similar personality?
I think that's a healthy thing. As long as you focus on what you're obsessed over, you could be obsessed over the wrong things.
Yeah, true.
And go down that rabbit hole. So I mean, we've all had periods of time where we look back and say, I spent too much time being obsessed over the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And it was a bad investment of my time.
Yeah, exactly. You look back and kind of reevaluate. Kind of having that awareness too. That's a big thing, right? So if you're not prioritizing, right? Let's say you're in a situation with your company right now where you're not super excited about it. Now, the unfortunate thing is, as an owner, no matter what the company is, that's your responsibility. So whatever activities that got you to where you're at now, maybe reevaluate some of those, right? And think about what the top companies of where you want to go, right? Companies of where you want to go, what are they doing? What do they look like? What do they invest in, right? And try to mimic something similar, right? You don't have to recreate the wheel. You can look and see the most successful people in your space, look at what they're doing, and kind of get at least an outline of how to go about things and how to operate that business.
Yeah, and the most successful roofing companies were created by the most successful roofing companies. You can see how many people have, become a leaf off of a tree and then turned into something that no one ever imagined they could be. And that's all from emulating what works and shirking what doesn't.
Yeah. Do you see any similarities? So you're all over the place. You're traveling, right? You're checking out, big commercial properties, right? Large lots, and you work with a variety of contractors. Do you see anything with the people that like really stand out where you're like, they really got it together? They're really doing a good job with their organization?
Yeah, I think it's an obsession, and the ones that are the best at it take that to a level where they build a culture to where it's not just about roofing. It's mainly focused on the people, and I could name a couple examples. People have done that great. I think we know who they are, but I think it's elevating the company from a roofing company to a culture that does roofing, right? And because let's be honest, roofing's not the sexiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But if you build a culture, you build a mindset, and you also assimilate that with a lot of success of the people that are there.
Yeah.
People will flock to that. They will. They don't care if it's roof. They will. If they're in white collar or doing something that might be more appealing from a professional standpoint, just from a paper perspective, but then they see someone that has a culture and the ability to have greater success and freedom as well. I think a lot of people will draw from other industries into the roofing industry with that in place.
And that's well said. And people use the phrase culture all the time, right? And people say, hey, have a great culture. But the thing is I think it's like 86% of people do not like their career or their job.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're able to create a culture that is to the point where it's an enjoyable place to work, you're showing career development opportunities, you show that you care, you create this attractive atmosphere for people to work at, right? And you're that part of that 14% that can create an opportunity, right? That they'll actually like their job. You're going to attract top talent. And then guess what? That top talent, they're going to help build the business.
Yeah, people say do what you love all the time,
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily true. I mean, we need to do the things that you hate.
Yeah.
Do the things that you
Yeah.
hate. But if you like who you are and where you're going while you're doing those things,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So those things you're waking up in the morning that you don't want to do and you've been putting off for who knows how long, do those things, right? Do those things that you don't want to do. That's where you're going to get that separation, because the things that are easy to do, everyone's already doing those, right? So I don't know if you heard it, eat the frog, right?
Yeah.
Attack that hardest thing that you have to check off right away in the day, right? And then at that point in the afternoon, usually the brain isn't able to kind of, handle as big of activities, or you might be already tired at that point. So start in the morning, eat the frog, attack whatever you don't want to do in the beginning if you know it's important.
100%.
Now, okay, so you mentioned obsession a few times, right? You mentioned it with the companies that you worked with. You kind of mentioned it with a few other things as well. And is that kind of, so you're the youngest partner now, right, at Daly Black, 35 years old. I'm guessing obsession probably had a little bit of a thing to helping you get to this point in your career.
I think it did. I mean, there was a period of time where I was pulling an all-nighter a week for a couple of years. I thought it was very unhealthy, actually, but I wouldn't do that today. But yeah, there was certainly an amount of obsession involved with that that was beyond. I mean, I remember Rick Daly telling me one time, he said, it seems like you don't even sleep, with the amount of work that I was cranking out. But yes, it takes that to rise to that level quickly.
You don't still do that, though, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
You're more balanced now, I would say.
Have to be.
Yeah, have to be. Which is interesting. I almost wonder if it's different chapters in your life that you can be a little bit more aggressive, in terms of that output. Because I look at, starting this company, the first couple of years was pretty rough. And so, but for the first couple of years, I put in a lot of work, right? You mentioned obsession, right? I remember sitting, on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, and all my friends are telling me to come hang out, and I'm sitting behind the computer, right, learning graphic design because I had to make some kind of post, and I didn't have somebody available to kind of help me out, right?
That's right.
And I'm spending 8 hours on a graphic design post that a designer might take 20, 30 minutes on, and I felt like that was it was always something, right? Where I was just working nonstop. And then I think you kind of switch from like that warrior mindset almost, right? Where it's just attack, break through whatever that obstacle is, to, I feel like maybe a little bit more of a strategic, or maybe you understand that you can't handle that output for the rest of your life.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And as an associate, you can really, put your nose to the grindstone. And, I'm not representing the company overall as a whole. I'm basically a worker bee role at that point in time. So I did exactly what was expected of me. Now I have to, command myself in boardrooms and on stages in front of people that, I'm sorry, but that sleep schedule is it's gonna leave you a little crispy in front of everybody if you have to be there all the time.
Yeah. How do you like presenting in the courtroom?
I love it.
You love it?
I love it. I mean, we 1% of our cases actually goes to trial.
Yeah.
But when we do go to trial, we win.
Yeah.
And we've gotten some of the biggest verdicts in the state of Texas and against insurance companies overall nationwide.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You want to share an example? Or you're not allowed to say anything? I'm not really sure how that works.
We got a $114 million verdict last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're experts in extra contractual damages, determining what the additional value is due based off of their misconduct, how that equates to the bad faith damages or statutory damages in the state, what the interest is, if there's delay penalties, and then we fight for our attorney's fees.
Yep.
But all that's done in trial, such that with those results, we turn around to our existing cases that we're all preparing to go to trial.
Yep.
And our opposing counsel is looking at our trial results thinking, even if we have a 50% chance of winning or defending this case, if what they're offering to settle for is less than 50% of what the potential damage in trial could be, they're going to settle that case.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I kind of want to break it down and start with you working for the insurance companies first, and then we'll dive into what you're doing now. So what was that like? What was defending the big bad insurance company like? Think about you were working for them. What was kind of like the mindset? What did you think about it? What did you learn? Stuff like that.
So I learned that the carriers try to take thousands of claims overall from a 100-foot up perspective, and try to assimilate them into boxes and try to make it all fit a metric. But there's a human element to claims, that they don't account for, right? And so they build it in their operating guidelines. And I know this from working for all 4 of the different carriers. So we had a private law firm that was hired by 4 different carriers. We were their trial sharks when it was going to trial. And we're the only ones, like, for example, certified to do cases over 1.5 million in exposure for Liberty Mutual up and down the East Coast. So we did big commercial, and we advised a lot of carriers on how to handle claims, or adjusters how to handle claims before they even went to legal. And so I learned that they're doing anything and everything they can from a perspective of a blueprint, basically, or a program.
Basically a cookie cutter template almost, right?
A template to make it so it's more difficult for the attorney or the insured to pursue that claim, and will deter them from going forward or taking the next step. They make it as difficult as possible. And even if the case is a winner, or in our instance, it's a loser, we're going to lose, we'll do everything we can to delay that result. And to the point where it puts a lot of pressure on the attorney who's representing that carrier, because it's not exactly the most justifiable way to go about things, or the most professional way to go about things.
How do they stall it, though? I mean, how do they just delay it? What is it? Because I hear that all the time. What does that look like? That it's like, oh, this is in process, basically, or something like that? Or what is that?
So, for example, they won't grant authority to settle the case until certain things have been done.
Oh, really?
Like expert depositions have been taken, a second mediation. So they just, even though the facts are warning some sort of recovery, it's very obvious there's bad faith. According to the facts in the state, they will still refuse to put the money that's warranted until certain things have been done, even if they're frivolous, because it's obvious on its face that this case is a winner,
right?
Or the carrier acted in bad faith and they should pay. They still won't until you reach a certain level of the litigation process. Which is just wrong.
So when you were in that position, though, I mean, you were new to the space.
Sure.
So what did you think? Did you think it was kind of like right away, or do you think like this is just kind of the way it is?
So I had the benefit of my first employer was working for the carriers for 22 years.
Okay.
He's also a graduate from Virginia Military Institute.
Oh, right on.
That's kind of how I found my way into him. And he was a seasoned vet with the carriers. He knew all the higher-ups at State Farm in particular. And he gave me a lot of good guidance on how to deal with that. How to have patience, because that's the one thing young lawyers don't have is patience and resolve. And, when I saw something that I thought was unjust, he said, listen, we have 4 clients. If we lose one of them, our business,
that's a huge hit. That's a huge hit.
Incredibly. And so we have to keep them happy. And so I learned how to keep them happy. Doesn't mean I was happy doing it, but I learned what to do, what to say, how to juggle, the adjuster with the carrier, with the opposing counsel, and make it all work, basically. But the job was to get enough information to go to that carrier and recommend that they settle it for a certain value. And the only thing they could say back is, well, did you depose this person? Did you get the request for production documents on this? Did you do discovery on that? And if the answer was yes, they would cut a check.
Ah, interesting.
But if the answer was, well, no, I didn't depose that, I took their word on it, that they would say no.
Wow.
And so I learned how to get the information they needed to fit their metric. And that was per carrier. Each carrier was a little bit different. But I definitely took notes on that process. And so now coming to the other side.
Was that a straight transition then too, by the way? Did you go? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Come to the other side, go ahead.
On the other side, I learned my job is to give the opposing counsel the things that they will need to go to the carrier and meet their metric, right? As opposed to playing hide the ball or.
So you knew what resources, what things they wanted exactly, basically.
Yes.
And you were able to kind of utilize that in your next step of your career now.
That's right. And I make the opposing counsel's job today it's easier for them. They see that I'm actually, as much as I'm their opposition, I'm also their friend, and that I'm trying to help them get their job done. Which is, one, not to lose. And we're in it to win. And so I want to give them the information they need to go and recommend that settlement in a way that the carrier will accept it.
All right. So now you're on the other side, right? So what, first off, when should someone hire a PA versus a lawyer? And then I have a follow-up question on that.
So I think you could hire both.
Hire both?
I think, the question, a lawyer can obviously take it further than a public adjuster.
Yep.
The question is, who do you want pre-litigation on that? Obviously, if it needs to go to litigation, or if the carrier's drawn a line in the sand and they're being unreasonable and not willing to budge, there's only one way to go. Let's go with an attorney and to file suit. But in terms of working at pre-litigation, to compile that file, to promulgate all the things that the carrier needs in terms of proof of loss and reports, and sort of to combat that in the initial stages, I think there are good lawyers and good public adjusters that can do both.
Yeah.
And some of them would do better than others, but at the same time, an attorney has more tools to take it to the next step. We were talking earlier that a public adjuster can do just as good a job as an attorney in the pre-litigation aspect, but they don't have the firepower to take it to the next level. And the carrier understands that, right?
They know Wow.
Now, how you set that claim up will determine whether or not what the value of that is later on. And so that's another thing to consider, is that, we are oftentimes at the mercy of what initially was filed in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And, if there was something incomplete about that, that could make our ability to go get those extra contractual damages more difficult.
Right.
But when we're looking at it from the perspective of, let's give them everything that they need, such that if they basically give them enough rope to hang themselves, such that if they don't come back affirmatively or reasonably with what we need, then the penalties will be steep against them.
Yeah.
And so we set up a claim pre-litigation from that perspective, whereas a public adjuster might not.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you said only 1% of your cases they actually go to court, or they
actually go to a trial.
That's right. Go to trial.
Yep.
So what does the other 99% of them look like?
They settle.
They settle.
They settle with prior to going there. If they won't pay what our client needs or what they should have received from that claim, according to their policy, plus our attorney's fees, then we're going to go to trial.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? But if they will pay what our client needs plus our fees, then we'll settle the case.
Yep.
Now that can happen, 2 months into the litigation process.
Yeah.
It can happen 2 days before we go to trial.
Yeah.
But 99% of our cases do settle before that. Has to go there.
So let's, we were talking on the phone earlier about cultivating the commercial claim process, right? Yeah. So, let's say that, one of my clients, all right, so we'll say it's Nick's Roofing here, right? And one of my clients has a commercial property here in Denver, right? Huge property, right? Gets obliterated by hail, right? And all of a sudden, I'm having some issues here. Or do I even hit you up before I have the issues because I know what the opportunity, like, what does that relationship look like? When am I giving you that call on this one?
Well, I get a call on day one a lot of times.
On day one,
right?
They're calling you,
because it's a large, complicated project.
Yeah.
Has a lot of moving pieces and parts, several different locations, and we need to figure out what policy coverages apply.
Right.
Because figuring out how to file that claim is essential according to what data loss it is, what policy was in place during that data loss, what the deductibles were, what the available coverages are, whether that be business interruption, what the limits are, and they need to know things like, is there an appraisal clause? Is it an ACV policy?
Right.
Because that can change everything.
That's a big one right there, right?
Or is there a provision in the policy that says it's an ACV after the roofs are 15 years old?
Oh, yeah.
And then we find out how old the roofs are. So I think, typically your regular sized residential or smaller commercial, I don't get the call on day one. I think it's pretty simple what needs to be done, even though sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But on the larger commercial ones, we get the call on day one oftentimes. And we we help them set it up. I used to provide services to set it up pre-litigation for free, and tell them what their coverages are, tell them, what the covered perils are, how to file this properly, and with the knowledge that if it worked out, great.
Yeah.
Good for them. That it would work out for them. They call me back. What do you want? I say nothing.
Right.
But if it didn't, then they're calling us back and they're seeking how to get a recourse on what they've done to rectify the claim that they put forth and see what damages are available.
So are contractors basically using you as like a tool in their tool belt, where it's like, hey, we know we're gonna have big commercial projects, right? We have London, we have Daly and Black, right? We're gonna be sending our business to these guys, and as soon as they get that bigger opportunity, no matter what, they're just giving you that call. You guys are looking through that insurance policy and basically just going from there.
Yes, that's right. Because the contractors, especially when you're talking about big commercial projects, a lot of the insureds have in-house counsel.
Yeah.
And it is a good look for them to have counsel that is an expert in the insurance process that will review the policy for them for free.
Yep.
And tell them what their coverages are, what they aren't, and just address the hard questions right away. Because if you miss it, obviously contractors can't read policy, but if there's an ACV clause in the policy, or it's a 15 years to ACV on the roofs, that could be a problem. That when they're selling based off of price, or they're selling based off of the process of getting them made whole, that's something that needs to be mentioned up front and right away. And they're not in the best position to discuss that or broach that topic, but we are, and we can address that and sort of work in tandem with the contractor to make sure that claim is going down the right track, or the expectations are set up properly from the beginning.
So technically, is the person who owns the property, right? And are they the ones that hire you technically, or is it the contractor that hires you?
Typically, it's the contractor that calls because they have a claim.
Yep.
And they know that this claim is going to be complicated. There's several different policies involved.
Yeah.
And the insured isn't the best person to determine that.
Yeah.
We do get calls from insureds oftentimes, the policy holders a lot as well. But obviously contractors run into more claims than they do on an annual basis.
So at Nick's Roofing, right, I've been doing, roofing for a while, and I'm still a little confused. What can I say? What can I say? What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do as a contractor? Make sure I don't get myself in trouble.
Good question. So I would say this: you, as long as you talk about facts and not your opinion, I think that's the most simple way to keep yourself out of trouble as a contractor and misstating what you can. Because if the fact is, that the law says this, the fact is that the damage is X, the fact is that the policy states this, those are all facts. But as soon as you say, and therefore the carrier is acting in bad faith, in my opinion, because they haven't honored this or taken note of that, that is where you cross the line into opinion. I think the best thing to really realize is you have the right, you are the best person to explain what the claims process is, and therefore you're the best person to propose to the insured how to tackle that or to begin the process, and you're the best person to close that, as long as you advise the insured, and you're totally within your realm of rights to do this, that they have rights to be treated fairly. Yeah. The carrier does not have a right to act unfairly or to be unreasonable. And that if they do, that there's penalties associated with that, or that there are potential damages associated with that. And you have legal counsel that can explain to them what those damages are, what their options are moving forward. As long as you keep it there, you're fine.
Keep it there, yeah.
But you're not selling off of price. You're selling off of process. You're telling them, you have rights to this claim. We know how to determine what the value of the damages are, presented to the carrier, and if they act unreasonably, we have somebody who can tell you what to do next.
So if I'm a contractor, and let's just say Nick's Roofing's got this big opportunity that's got hit by hail, and I can tell, I've been in the area for a while, that I'm going to be dealing with the insurance company. It's going to be a process. I gave you a call. Am I done then talking to the insurance company, or what's my relationship with the insurance company? Like, how should I be interacting with them after I hire you guys for the project?
I wouldn't say act any different.
No.
It's not, yes, you have the ability to show up to the adjustments.
Yep.
We don't do adjustment
Exactly, right.
or mutual inspections with the adjusters. You do that. You put together your estimate, put together your photo report.
Yep. Which is where they could hire a PA too if they wanted to, right? For that. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
But let's be honest. At the end of the day, the clients, if they get the money that they need, they're going to want you to create some sort of estimate of what work you're going to do. You don't rely on the public adjuster's estimate all the time.
Yeah.
Even though that does maybe determine the value of the case, you also come back around and you have to create an agreement with the client.
Yeah.
The same way you would in a retail job as to what work is going to be done for this money.
But that seems important, though, to make sure that you do an estimate on the front end correctly, right? Whether that's giving you a call or whatever it might be, to make sure that we don't go in when we're working with you with a number that's much lower than it should be, right? And
that
you put in an upward battle for you guys.
That is the case as well. And we want to make sure that that time invested in creating that is worthwhile. So what we have at our firm is something that enables we want you to be our expert. And in consideration for your expertise for free, which you would do ordinarily, you're guaranteed the construction job if and when we settle the case to make the client whole.
Yep.
And so that's an agreement that we seek to sign with the insured up front and in the beginning when there is no claim money on the table. Because if we wait until afterwards, there's creative things that the client likes to do with that money, particularly when they get the money that they wanted or even more money than they ever anticipated.
Yeah.
They get creative with how to try to do away through contingency agreement, and that can cause severe problems. But in the beginning, if they assign me power of attorney to add the contractor's name to the settlement check, if we settle the claim for what it takes to make them whole, because our contractor was our expert for free the entire time, that takes care of all those problems. So we signed that in the beginning. It's an optional expert consultant rider that we provide, but if the client won't sign that in the beginning, it's a huge red flag to Nick's roofing company.
Exactly.
They're just taking you for a ride.
They're taking me for a ride, and I might be getting paid out anyway. So what's
That's
the
right.
difference? Yeah, 100%. I mean, do you have, you're obviously an expert in this space. You know, you've been on both sides. Do you have any other advice or any other kind of tips that you've been seeing in this space that's like, hey, with the claim process, make sure you guys are doing this, this, and this, or anything like that?
I would say the number one thing, and it's very simple, is to make sure you have the right date of loss and the right covered peril. And particularly on a large claim where you have multiple properties insured, where not all of them might not have been affected by the storm. Yeah. You know, I'm thinking of, claim we just handled in Iowa that it was over 90 properties insured and 72 had damage to them. Yep. And they were all damaged from different dates. They had 2 hailstorms and then the derecho storm that year. Oh, yep, that's right, yeah. And so typically when you call in a claim, or that's how most people initiate a claim is they call it in. Yeah. Well, there's a property loss form that's created by the person on the other end of that phone.
As soon as you make that phone call. Boom.
And they're writing down what you're transmitting to them, and they're enumerating in print what your claim is. The date of loss, the property, the locations involved, and the covered peril on that date of loss. Now, as we know from that game of telephone we used to play when we were kids, things can get misconstrued. Even if they didn't intentionally fail to transmit exactly what you said, it gets misconstrued all the time. And so, you could say wind and hail, and they only put down wind. Yep. You could say this property and this property was affected, and they only put down, one of them. You could say this property is affected by 2 different dates of loss, and they only put down one of them. You don't know what's actually on that property loss form when you get off the phone. You don't know what they've transmitted. So to actually put that in writing in an email in follow-up to that call.
So you email it to them, basically, you're saying. So send a follow-up email as soon as you get off the phone. Because, let's be for real. You guys have all been there. If you ever had to deal with a customer service situation, right, or something that you're trying to get resolved personally, and it's going to be kind of messy and stuff like that, and a process to say the least, you know how that stuff goes, right? If you say one thing wrong or if you do anything.
You could say everything right. I've had clients that said, no, it's exactly what I told them, and I believe them, but on the property loss notice form that was created on the other end of that phone, it's not transmitted properly.
So always have a paper trail, basically.
Yes.
Where, hey, you have the conversation, you tell them, but just in case, you're sending up a follow-up email.
Yes. This is I'm filing, property loss for these dates on these properties for these covered perils specifically.
So does that mess up the claim then? So like, let's say that I call it in, right, and I said wind, hail, and I said the 2 dates, whatever it might be, but they only said wind and they only said one of the dates. Does that jack everything up then, basically?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're missing a covered peril, you're missing a date, and that's an incomplete claim. And so when you're weighing, if they fail to pay that claim reasonably, and we go back and say, okay, well, let's weigh what their conduct looks like here. But certain dates and things were missed in the very beginning. That's the policyholder's duty, is to file the right claim on the right date, right, notify the carrier of the right addresses. And they normally do that via phone call, and even if they're intending to do it properly, or they do it properly, it can still be wrong. So to follow that up with an email, I think, is the number one thing that everybody could do to make sure that doesn't ever happen.
Do the commercial property owners mess that up quite a bit?
All the time.
Oh, I bet.
All the time. And so filing a proof of loss with the carrier to follow up the initiation of that claim is key. The proof of loss tells them exactly, what the address is, what the property, the data loss was, what the covered perils are, and the valuations that you're seeking in every single area of property coverage that's available. What, business interruption, loss of use, personal property. These are all things that contractors not necessarily looking at, but they're areas of coverage that are recoverable under the policy, and they're never requested properly. So that's something that either an attorney. We help the insured out with, where the contractor might not necessarily. The contractor could hand them a proof of loss form and say, "Hey, fill this out and turn it in," but you can't fill it out for them.
Oh, you can't fill it out for them.
You can't fill it out for them. That would be crossing the line for unauthorized public adjusting. Yeah. But if we fill it out for them, have them sign it, and send it in with our letterhead saying, you now have 60 days or 45 days or whatever the prompt pay period is to respond to this, and there's penalties for your failure to do so. Yeah. Clock's ticking. Start the clock on them. That's what we seek to do.
Tick. You just expedited that process. They've been trying to delay anyways too. So, what do you think about the insurance company, the policyholder, the contractor kind of dynamic? Have you seen that change at all? I mean, what do you think for the future? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, when I came up to Colorado, it was the year after they allowed assignment of claim and benefits here in Colorado. In fact, the law states that a contractor or one who provides services on behalf of an insured, a vendor, can step into the shoes of the insured. Yep. And don't even need an assignment of claim if the work has been performed. And so that's a little bit different than Florida. But here, I have filed suits, bad faith suits, in over $10 million in the name of contractors that stepped into the shoes of the insured upon assignment of claim. And so I've dealt with that dynamic very, very well. Yeah. When I say I've dealt with all the different scenarios that can come up in that dynamic. Yeah. On that one claim, for example, as soon as we filed suit, when they initially denied the claim or said it was underneath the deductible, they tried to send a $2 million ACV check to the insured. But the client is the contractor. In fact, the plaintiff is the contractor, right? And the insured then tried to call the contractor, my client, and say, cancel their contract. What they cannot do, because the claim has already been assigned. Suit has already been filed. And but of course they would try to do such a thing, because they just got $2-some million and they think we're done. So we go patch it up and the claim is over. And so I think what I think about the dynamic is that it can work very smoothly as long as communication is done across the board, as long as expectations are managed from the beginning. Because when you set the expectation bar too high in the beginning and something changes that could have been discovered earlier, that trust breaks down. And then also greed. So I think managing expectations, trust, and greed are the three things that are essential to keep that triangle between the contractor, the insurance company, and the contractor going. The other number one thing I see with that dynamic is the contractors are oftentimes afraid to speak first to the insurance company. If they assess the value of a claim and they think this is $1 million claim, this is $1 million loss, and they know the carrier is going to come out with an estimate of 10 cents on the dollar or less, or they can presume this much, they will wait for the carrier to come out and commit to coverage, and then bring in their estimate for $1 million or more. From the insured's perspective now, all of a sudden, it looks like their contractor is too expensive. But if the contractor had just come out with their estimate first, to the insured, it would have looked like the carrier is underpaying the crap out of this claim.
Yeah.
They're paying 10 cents on the dollar. It's all about who speaks first. And I think in that dynamic, contractors taking more of a passive role and allowing the carrier to speak first on coverage is the incorrect thing to do, even though they're trying to establish, hey, the carrier can come out with coverage and they might refute coverage if I come out with my $1 million plus estimate. The fact is they're going to refute coverage either way.
Yeah.
If that's what they're going to do, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Don't get so concerned with what the carrier is going to do.
Yeah.
Just concern yourself with your process, and that if you speak first, now the perspective of your client is different when the carrier comes out and underpays the claim.
You got to think your client's most likely uneducated, right? And very cautious, unaware, really doesn't know what to expect of the process. So you got to think if the insurance company, right, they should be an expert in the field. This is all they do, right, is saying one thing, and then you try to come in and say another, they're going to be like, oh, this snaky contractor or something like that.
That's how it looks.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just not a good look.
Yeah, but if you just switch the order of that, it looks like the contractor is actually having your back and trying to protect the structural integrity of your property by obtaining the maximum value they can on the claim.
Yep.
And the carrier is coming out and trying to cheat them.
Yep.
But the other way around, now, like you said. So that's something to take caution of and understand that, if you speak he who speaks first, usually it's, a situation where they're afraid to set their numbers out there. But if you build in the trust in the beginning that you're an expert in the process and that they have rights to this value, despite the fact that it seems very high, they have a right to it. And if they don't have a right to it, the carrier has a duty to tell them why that's not the value that's due, and provide that, a reasonable basis why the other portion that they're denying shouldn't be paid. Then they should be totally comfortable with whatever price is put out there in the beginning. Because if it's not right, the carrier has a duty to tell us why.
Yep.
But that's not how they look at it oftentimes, and it's really out of fear.
Well, good stuff, man. Hey, we're gonna transition into a game, but hey, if someone wants to if someone wants to get a hold of you though, what's the best way to do so?
So I would say call the office, but this is such a limited group, and this is a special group of people that I'll give them my personal cell phone.
Hey, get the digits, man.
Call me directly.
Yeah. What we got?
So 720-925-0785. Our website's dalyblack.com, DALYBLACK.com. And we also have, my partners are also available as well. But if you want to reach me directly, there's my cell phone, 720-925-0785.
Make sure you guys are getting in touch, right? My belief as a business owner is the more resources you can equip yourself with to be successful, the better off you're going to be. Makes sense, right? And you know what the best resources is? It's smart people. So give them a call, get in touch. I guarantee he can help you out if you guys are in this space and dealing with commercial claims. Oh, hey there. You come here often? I feel like I see you every Wednesday. And, you definitely caught my eye. I'll tell you one thing. You know how to stand out from a crowd. You already got a lot of great things going for you. I mean, I see your company. I see what you got going on. I want to be part of it. How about I give you my number and you send me a text? 720-796-4935. Hey, yeah, it's Nick, right? Peakleads.io. I think we can help you generate some commercial roofing leads. Looking forward to chatting. Talk soon. All right, so we're going to go to a game here, okay? So we have commercial, or who wants to be a roofing millionaire, okay? I don't think I actually gave you any roofing questions. There might be one in here, okay? And I know you're not a big sports guy, but the first question is the only sports question, all right?
Fair enough.
But it is based off of the University of Virginia. Now, you have two lifelines, all right? So you got a 50-50, which will remove two of the wrong answers, leaving you with a 50% chance of getting correct, and you can phone a friend. All right, but if you call someone, they don't pick up, you're done. All right, and you lose a lifeline. All right, so I gotta move this because I know some cheaters. I see you peeking over here, ready. So no wonder you did so good on the bar exam, right? No, I'm joking.
They put don't put opposing counsel's table too close together because I will read their notes.
Yeah, I love it, dude. All right, so the University of Virginia won the NCAA basketball national championship in 2019. All right, so just a couple of years ago. Who did they beat? Was it A, Texas Tech, B, Baylor, C, Duke, or D, North Carolina?
Oh, I'm gonna go with B, Baylor.
Close. I'm pretty sure that Baylor was actually in the game before. I think they were in the Final Four and got eliminated. So it was A, Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
Uh-huh. Did you ever go to any of those basketball games or no?
Yeah, I used to when I was there.
Yeah?
It was our basketball team was just ramping up. It got really good after I left, but it was just
They've
ramping
been
up.
really good lately. Yeah. It's crazy. I think they had I think they might have lost one game, or were they even undefeated in the season, one of them. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely loaded. All right. So I was doing some stalking on you. It looks like that you're a snowboarder, all right? So you like to snowboard. Who doesn't out here in Colorado, right? Well, you can't beat it, man. So Sherman Poppin was actually the inventor of the snowboard in 1965 when he built it as a toy for his daughters, a Christmas gift, all right? But he didn't name it snowboarding at first. So what did he call it? Do you call it A, slalom skiing, B, ski boarding, C, snurfing, or D, mountain boarding?
We'll go with ski boarding.
Surprisingly, C, snurfing.
Snurfing.
And it has transformed into snowboarding, where I'm guessing people all over the world are now using it. Just because some dude made a Christmas gift for his daughters. Pretty cool, hey?
Striking out here.
Yeah, hey, this is insurance. This is tough because this is number one, and you never know. I've been called out on some of the statistics. People will say, "Oh, that doesn't seem right." All right, I got one resource. This is what I got. So if you argue, let me know. We'll figure it out later. How big was the global commercial insurance market in 2020? Was it A, 700 billion, B, 100 billion, C, 50 billion, or D, 3 trillion?
The mark mean insured properties.
So this is exactly. So someone paying money to the insurance company, basically, that owns a commercial property.
700 billion.
Yeah, you got that one right. So you know your stuff there, man. $700 billion, man. What do you think of that?
Sounds like enough.
Yeah, it sounds like
enough to have rights.
Yeah, for real, right? $700 billion.
That's premiums paid.
Yeah, that's premium spend. That's insane. All right. So consistently ranked among the top law schools, the University of Virginia School of Law is the second oldest continuous operating law school in the nation. Who founded it? Who founded the law school in 1819? Was it A, John Adams, B, George Washington, C, Alexander Hamilton, or D, Thomas Jefferson?
It'd be D, Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. I didn't know that. I looked it up. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, TJ.
TJ,
sure.
Hey? Is he all over the place, I'm guessing? Everywhere? Yeah, it's got to be. What do you know?
Pretty popular guy around.
You know anything cool about Thomas Jefferson?
There's a lot of very interesting things about Thomas Jefferson.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but I mean, mainly that he was a big ladies man.
He was a ladies man. Hey, he used to score with the ladies?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, TJ.
Wow.
He was known for that.
Wow. So he was kind of
which-
a player, right?
Yes, supposedly he was. Yeah.
No
He had
kidding.
A lot of children.
Yeah. A lot of children too,
If
hey?
You heard about? Yeah. Well, if you go to his family reunion that
Yeah.
he has every year, he had children with some of the slaves that he had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Supposedly.
Wow.
So yeah.
So he got around.
His family is very diverse.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thomas Jefferson. Shouts out, bud. All right. So the last one is a Colorado question. All right. Colorado state animal. All right. You've been here for 5 years, correct? What is the
4.
Colorado state? 4 years?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you,
Animal.
yeah. Is it A, black bear? B, bighorn sheep? C, moose? Or D, the elk?
I'm gonna go with D, the elk.
That's what I thought it would be, but surprisingly, it's actually B, the bighorn sheep.
Bighorn sheep.
Have you seen any of those
I've
yet?
never seen one.
You haven't seen them yet?
Never seen one.
I was hiking Pikes Peak. So Pikes Peak is, I think it's like 26 miles. It's very much a marathon, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the total hike distance. And we're hiking. It's windy, crazy, cold. Like, it was just one of those days. It was one of the great. And then we got to a spot where it was maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 yards was a whole pack of them. And they're doing the thing where they're smashing their heads together. And then one of them turns around and he starts taking his hoof and starts going like that to me. And I was like, oh, because if you got smoked by one of those things.
Oh, yeah, I don't think you could outrun that either.
Oh, no way. Oh, I'd be done. I mean, majority of the animals out here, I'd be done if they really wanted to. But that's it. We'll be giving you a gift here shortly too. So be on the lookout for that. But other than that, we really appreciate you coming in and being on the show. We give you the last here. So usually I email us. I didn't even email, but we ended with enlightenment. So you could do like a book suggestion, a quote, something that that you live by, something that you're working on, something you're learning. Anything you want to leave the viewers. That way, the end note's you, not me.
You want a quote or a book or?
You pick any of those, whatever you want. It could be a book you're reading. It's gonna be a quote. Something. Whatever. A life lesson your dad taught you. You name it.
I think the quote that I live by is whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
So mentally, right? Decide. Can I do this? Can I not do this? Right?
Yep.
I mean, for me, if you're going into it with the mindset that you can't, it's already done. Right? In order for other people to believe, you got to believe. Right? So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Right? So, hey, my man, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on over and hanging out.
Thanks for having me.